I am a writing enthusiast, and I have some rules. I need a tone of voice. I like a little cheek. I like a little humor. I don't love an emoji, but I'll use it when it makes sense. I work with a lot of freelance writers. If they could make me laugh in a post about SEO, I'm in. I'm sold.
Welcome to What Gets Measured, a NinjaCat podcast about marketing, performance management, metrics, and effectiveness. Because what gets measured gets managed. I'm your host, Jake Sanders. Rachel Hernandez is the director of marketing at NextNet Media, the largest global network of trusted media outlets, link partners, and global news websites. She has nearly a decade of content marketing experience and currently oversees in-house teams and a vast network of over 700 freelancers. She's here today to talk about content marketing in the age of AI. Rachel, welcome to the show.
Hey, thank you. Thank you so much for having me and for that great intro. My goodness.
Hey, it's you. It's all you. And if it's not true, then who cares? We're just going to keep going. Here we are in the age of AI, I guess. AI has been around for, I don't know, since the 50s, but it's really coming into prominence. A lot of content marketers in general are either clutching their pearls or clutching their life rafts. I mean, it's already changed a bunch since it showed up. So what, in your opinion, has changed in content marketing? What do you think will never change?
Oh my gosh. Well, so much has changed in content marketing. And I mean, some of it's interesting too, because it's change, but it's like change in things that have been happening for a long time. So I think one of like the main takeaways that we've gotten since AI has hit the mainstream and more people have used it to create content is that now like anybody can create content very, very quickly. But generally all that content is like fairly mid or mediocre for the majority of the time. It's interesting to me though, because I've been thinking about this and talking about it a lot, is like that also is, it's not like a new complaint. Like copywriters and especially writing for SEO or like things like that, like sort of taking things that they find on the internet, Frankensteining them, regurgitating them in order to post something. So it's kind of the same thing. It's just way easier and way more tempting to do now. So that's changed, is like there is an opportunity for people to create content a lot more quickly in some ways. If you have like limited resources, if you're, a one-man band or you don't have a marketing team, like, yeah, it's super, super tempting to plug something into Chat GPT and have it spit out a deliverable. But the thing that's not changing, I think, is still the emotional resonance and connection that real good solid marketing has with the user, and the fact that whether or not it's AI content, which I don't know about you, but like I can recognize it now from a mile
Away. If I start delving into a landscape,
gosh.
I'm just like flag waving.
That's AI. That's AI. And then all of a sudden I'm turned off because I'm like you didn't make this. You didn't make this for me. You made this for you. You made this for you because it made your life easier. So as a user consumer, I'm like, I don't know if I want to buy what you're selling. No pun intended. But I think now more than ever, content that like resonates with people and is more authentic and actually connects to their experience is going to hit harder, which is a very cool opportunity for marketers and people like us.
Yeah. And it's interesting because there is a lot of it's going to change the game, and you're like, it's actually going to make the middle of the field bigger.
Exactly.
Like, if you're new, you're always going to be new. If you're established and rocking, it might not touch you. But a lot of these people in the middle of the field are going to have to sort of navigate that stuff. But you brought up something really interesting that like, and this is something I was thinking too. It's like marketing content has always had a robotic approach, no one ever wants too much flavor in the content. Like this is a business, but then you keep hearing you're a storyteller, tell those stories. And you're like, okay, so tell a story, right? But like have it get signed off by the CEO, who's a
Yeah.
Toastmaster and watches TED Talks and it's got to be perfect. I think you're saying something really smart because that templatized thing has always been attractive. But I mean, I guess one of the templates is search engine optimization. A lot of the reason why we are creating this content is, yes, to explain things, maybe to do some product marketing, but also just to get up on the rankings. Do you think, how's AI, in your estimation, changing search? Is it making it better? Is it harder? What's your thoughts in SEO and AI?
So far, it's not making it better, but it will, in my opinion. And I think it's just because Google has had to sort of react really quickly and pivot multiple times. And, they haven't done themselves any favors when it comes to how they're speaking to how they're working with AI content. They came out at first and with a helpful content update that came out right after ChatGPT hit the mainstream. Jasper AI got a ton of funding where they were like content written for humans by humans. And then everybody and them kind of figured out that they couldn't really detect if something was AI. So they said, okay, no. They didn't update to that. They did a second helpful content update and said, actually, it doesn't matter if AI wrote it as long as the content's useful to users. But we just had this really big March core algorithm update that targeted, for the most part, sites that weren't demonstrating that helpful content. And one of the signals that they looked at was, are you uploading a lot of content really quickly, like faster than an actual user could create? And to them, that signifies that that's content written for search engines and not people. And we saw a lot of sites get dinged. And for the first time in, I think I can comfortably say years, because I've been doing this for a while,
Mm-hmm.
sites really getting de-indexed and getting not being found in the SERPs. So while they can't detect AI content right now, and like, let's be, because this is something where I think it's funny because we talk about Google and quality content. Like Google can't read, like it's not reading your work and like judging whether or not it's good. It operates off of signals.
Right.
Um, so if you're, creating a ton of AI content, uploading it to your site quickly to manipulate the search engines, they're gonna smell a rat basically,
Right.
and you'll get a ding.
Right.
So that's one way. The other thing that's going on right now is SGE is rolling out. So that's Search Generative Experience. And Google has been sort of changing its results page. It's no longer, we all know, just a list of websites to go to. When you punch in a query, you'll get people also ask, you'll get shopping results if those are relevant, you'll get a map, local businesses if those are relevant, et cetera. We know. And SGE is going to take it even further, where depending on the question and how far the user wants to go, they might not necessarily have to leave the search engine results page to get an answer. SGE is essentially like it's more experiential, I should say, than ChatGPT. Like you're interacting with it more. It gives you follow-up questions. So SEOs are afraid because this could and will result in a loss of clicks and organic traffic.
Mm.
And so I think people are really struggling to figure out how to work in this new age of search, which is happening and it is going to roll out. And when they do roll it out, I think it's going to be really good because they've kind of fumbled the ball with like Bard and all the things that they've been trying to do before. So,
Right.
yeah,
Wow. I mean,
a lot going on.
there's a lot going on.
There's a lot going on.
Everybody knows that. They're like, what's going on? But it's interesting that, flashback 5-8 years ago, Google's the DJ. Google's playing the hits, and we all changed our dance steps to be like, oh, what do you like? Do you like it when I dance like this? And you're like, oh God, is this penguin approved dancing or is it panda? Like, what's going on? And the audience, you can't see, but I am dancing. And it's not good. But it's kind of interesting to see that this SGE is going to kind of continue that, but do you think
Yeah.
people are less inclined to pay attention to the Google DJ and change their steps? I mean, or does it feel like that still is a very rebellious thing? Like, I don't care about the search engines. Like, well, that says that's coming from somebody who is now unemployed. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, do you think we're listening more or less to Google? I mean, speak about that Google thing.
That Google machine. Yeah. I mean, I think you should be paying attention to the search engines,
Right.
but trying to like do that by making educated guesses because nobody knows how the algorithm works. And fundamentally, like, again, I know this is a cliche, but it's true because I see so many sites do it. Creating content for Google and not for the user, I think is just not a game that's sustainable. And we're seeing that with this last core update. For me, when I think about optimizing for a web page to rank or an image or for even something like SGE, it's more of a way that you sort of template the content that you're creating. So I'll talk about SGE because even though we don't know for sure, like I think this is how it's going to work, at least at first. I think it's going to be very similar to how we optimize for featured snippets or position zero, which is a long tail keyword. So something that's like a longer question, put it into a piece of content on your website and then directly answer that question in a very like easy to understand taken way as part of like a longer blog post or resource or whatever, because Google will match that query, that headline, and then pull up that succinct answer. And I think that was a long way and I might have gotten off track, but I also just think we need to start thinking about what KPIs we're using to judge our content and how well it's doing in SEO,
Mm.
because right now it is like a lot of it is about traffic, organic traffic. And in some ways, I do think that's a vanity metric because for our website, and I think it's great, we get a ton of great backlinks and traffic because we have over 100 free SEO tools. That traffic doesn't necessarily translate into ROI, not directly.
Right.
And I think sometimes we have to think, okay, we have a limited amount of resources. Like, what kind of traffic are we pulling in? Can we make it a little bit more targeted? If somebody doesn't click on our site, but we're repeatedly showing up at the top of the search because we're an SGE result, and they start recognizing our brand as the expert on this particular subject,
Mhm.
you're building that brand affinity. And then when the user actually does click on that link to go and learn more, they are more warm and they're potentially more apt to buy. So I think it's not about like, oh, stop optimizing for search, but maybe just start thinking about how it's changing and how the ways that we judge its usefulness have to change then as well.
It's a great segue into my next question, which is about the quantitative data. Like,
Yeah.
how are you measuring the success and impact of content marketing? And then for a huge book of clients, like, I mean, how are you keeping track of all that at scale? What are you looking for?
I mean, I do marketing for the Hoth right now. And so measuring success for clients, I think for them, one of the things that we always ask when they are submitting like a project or a brief for us to create some content or links for them is what the goal is, because that doesn't necessarily match up across different companies or industries. So, yeah, for some clients, it's like we want to get a ton of traffic for this particular keyword. For other clients, it's something different. It's like we want to bring users to this page and convert. Like, and so then maybe you are not going for a high volume search. You're going for something that's a little bit more targeted,
Right,
bottom funnel,
right,
long tail.
right.
For me specifically, because I do a lot of content for our company, and yeah, I look at SEO metrics for sure. I want to see that it's performing well in the SERPs. But one of the newest things, and again, going back to Google can't read, I think engagement is something that sometimes gets overlooked. So comments on a post, shares, if we put it on one of our organic social media channels, are people sharing that post? Are they responding? Is, if we send an email out, this is not SEO, but in general, are people responding to the message? I think, again, you look at click-through rates and open rates, but an engaged user who's actually writing back to you that's a good lead. That's somebody who is into sticking with you and your brand. So I'm excited for this because I think, and again, going back to Google Can't Read, engagement is going to be this huge thing moving forward, especially as AI and all these algorithms keep building on each other.
It's not amazing. I knew somebody who worked like the help section of Etsy, and he was in charge of answering people's questions. And one of the metrics he was measured by was time on page, and they wanted to get it down.
No.
But he was like, I know you want that, but I'm saying when they're spending more time, they're solving their problems here, and it was like really hard for the upper level people who were just in charge of like efficiency metrics. They were like, no, 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 no. And you're like, no, hold on. And I mean, and that's one thing that I've been seeing in my Google Analytics 4, and we could complain about that because, boy, Universal Analytics was okay, but now GA4, you're like, what's going on here? But the engagement metrics there, I find very inciting because I'm like, oh, the most visited page is not the most engaged with. And you're like, oh, that just hurts my head. And I heard somebody say on LinkedIn, the people most likely to buy will never click on an ad. They will lurk. And you're like, well, how do I measure that? And so I love this idea, the shifting towards engagement, which it always should have been, right?
Always should have been. And that's why, I mean, I am a personal, obviously, like big fan of like brand affinity and things like that.
Right.
And I do come from an industry where direct advertising, like, has been, ironically, direct advertising is a really big way that people push SEO services a lot of the time. And I'm not saying we don't, but we do kind of take more of like a brand affinity stand to it. And I think it's just a very easy trap for C-suite to fall into because it's an obvious ROI to them. It's like 1-to-1. But you're not playing the long game then you're relying on, a snappy ad, or you're relying on a promo or something like that. It's a losing game when we're talking long term.
Oh, totally. Oh, that's so fantastic. And then thinking more about qualitative data. So you're saying you have people who are responding, you have these small little diamonds, that you're looking for in the coal mine of content. How do you use data to inform the content you create? Where do you get it? How do you distill insights? Like, just speak about the qualitative nature about creating content.
Yeah, and I feel like I wish so much is qualitative. I think when you're doing things like this, which again, people don't necessarily want to hear. And I guess some of it is quantitative too. But when I'm creative content, I look at like what's been getting engagement and what's been getting responses. So we have a few blogs on our site that get comments like every single day that have been published, maybe I usually will update them every 6 months or so, but like they were initially published maybe like 2 years ago. And they're generally about things like buying backlinks or like an SEO strategy template or this longer form kind of digital strategy things where people are really digging in. They want the full story. They want to learn more. And those I'll usually kind of build out even more and turn them into my pillar pieces. And then from there, create those topic clusters. So essentially, your pillar piece is like the big story of a particular niche within your industry. For me, one of them is link building. And then I'll have smaller posts all around link building that support that pillar content, and they all link back to each other with an internal linking structure. So that's kind of one way I'll use qualitative data to build a content strategy. And then I think there's just like, gosh, like I I think there's also just believing in like your brand and the way that you want to tell stories and the stories that you want to tell. And that's really qualitative, right? Like I have I am a writing enthusiast and I have some rules. I need a tone of voice. I like a little cheek. I like a little humor. I don't love an emoji, but I'll use it when it makes sense. I work with a lot of freelance writers. If they could make me laugh in a post about SEO, I'm in. I'm sold. Like
Sold.
100%.
A
Like,
hundred
you
percent.
know, I think those things too are important. And I've definitely worked with some freelance writers, for instance, who like to use like take the scarcity marketing idea and like take it one step further and just like try and scare the crap out of people to get them to buy something. And I, I don't even care if it works. Like I gotta sleep at night. I can't stand behind it. It leaves such a bad taste in my mouth.
Yeah, well, and that's where a lot of marketers are turning into armchair psychologists. They're like, well, I really want to understand what drives human behavior, and be like, fool, you want to get paid, and then you'll do whatever you have to do to get paid. And they're like, well, they come from a loss, gain, aversion, confirmation
Yeah.
bias, and you're like, What you're saying is really great because it connects to this. There's an entertainment aspect to content that a lot of people think is an informative only gig. Like people only read with their logics and their rations and their calculating brain. But if you start with something that grabs people's intrigue and then you're like, oh, what does that mean? Like you have them,
Yeah.
and like if you can create intriguing, interesting, definitive, personalized, something that connects, maybe it won't be as great as those strategy things. But just like what you were saying, my most trafficked things are these strategic ideas. And those
Yeah.
people aren't likely to turn into customers. But oh boy, do we have traffic. But this smaller niche thing that really talks about, something like, SEO in a humorous way, but real and relating to tactics and then relating to your pillars and your clusters and things like that. That's the juice, like
Yeah.
it's a human thing. And I think we're trying to extract the humanity out of it. And it's cool that you're interviewing people at the front saying, if you're scaring me, I'm not into it. If you make me laugh, that's interesting, but be human, maybe.
Maybe. Especially now, be human. Especially now, be human. And like we were saying, like, you can spot an AI post from a mile away. I can spot a post from somebody who doesn't care about what they're writing from a mile away too. And that's important. And there is sort of one of the reasons why I like marketing, because I do think like a creative consider myself to be a creative person and kind of speak the language of stories,
Mm-hmm.
but also just being like very operations focused
Yes.
and in a sense like fairly formulaic in the way that I lay things out.
Oh, I mean,
That's like the synergy. That's the magic. I shouldn't say synergy. Oh my gosh, take a drink.
no, it's okay.
But
Synergy,
that's the
take a
magic.
shot. No,
Yeah.
but you're saying something that is true. And I came at this from the 100% creative role.
Yeah.
And then I realized if you really want to ship things, you got to have templates, you got to have strong outlines, fill them up as you want, get creative with it, but you got to know the space, the limits. And people think creativity is limitless. And you're like, nah. It's much more exciting if it's in this small area, because then
Exactly.
you're going to be able to see, oh, that was a creative way to think about this one concept rather than like, and so I remember kind of struggling with that because I was like, man, we got to be big. We got to be creative. And you're like, no, you have to be, I want you to do that. But you got to approach it tactically. And then you have to come from strong strategy or else you're just, what are you doing? You're juggling on the corner. And even that might work. I don't want to stop people who want to hire a juggler. Please do that. Well, so can you give me some stories, speaking of storytelling, examples where you helped clients just rock it out of the house with content marketing? And also, do you have any content marketing horror stories? And they don't have to be yours. They could just be horror stories that you viewed from the peanut gallery.
Yeah, I mean, I think just and I look at the Hoff because I've been doing our content for a while and client content too, actually, I should say. So yes, we have been able to take client content and sort of rock it out of the water. And I can't name names because I've signed some
We don't expect that here, Rachel.
companies.
We signed our own NDA, you know.
But like I think one that comes to mind initially was we had a client who just really wanted us to talk about, I think a lot of like businesses kind of do this where they fall in love with themselves or their product or their operations. And so they basically wanted all their content to be around like how awesome they are and how long they've been in business and how many businesses they've served and helped, and like the awards they've gotten, and
Uh,
and it can be tough to convince a client like, I know you're paying for this, and yeah, you want people to learn about you, but it's also not about you, it's about them. And so we did some keyword research. I'm not going to say what niche they are just in case. And, came up with some really great topics to write on that worked their users throughout the funnel. And, we were able to increase their traffic by, I forget the percentage, but it was like something very major, but also increase their conversions and their sales, like just by creating content that actually connected to the user's needs.
oh,
And I get it. Like I've also even like I am tempted sometimes to be like, we create optimized content and we build links, but like what does that really mean to someone who's not a nerd like me
right,
in this field? Does it mean
right,
anything?
right.
No, like we help businesses we help you be successful at something that's hard.
There, it was, yeah, and somebody would be like, "No, it needs to have more acronyms. It needs to have a scientific word. Can we put next gen in it?" And you're like, "I
Yeah.
mean, we could." I've been telling everybody. I just was watching YouTube like the other day, and I got an ad for Pants 2.0, and they were like, "These are like next gen pants." I was like, "Huh?" And it made me sad because I was like, "Oh no, my pants are in beta. All my
Oh,
pants have been in beta."
no.
But what 2.0 pants? Please,
Well,
whoever somebody is the pant 2.0 company, they're like, hey, that's our pants. Well,
and
enjoy
I
it.
will say though, there is something to be said for like we have a product called Blogger Pro that's like you only work with writers who have direct experience in your industry or your niche.
Tacit knowledge.
Tacit knowledge. So that's very useful if you are like B2B, or if you are in an industry that has a specific sort of vernacular where if you are not, especially for B2B, if you're not using that language and incorporating it into
Oh,
their content
huge.
marketing, they're not going to trust you at all. So there is something to
Great
be
point.
said for that. But
Absolutely.
that's not like a hacky griftery like buzzword type situation.
No, and it's informed from keywords, and then there could be
Mhm.
certain things that competitors are talking about that you could phrase differently, and you make a really, really smart point. Like you do have to seem of the crowd,
Mhm.
you
Of the
know.
crowd. Yeah.
They don't
Yeah.
want you sticking out too much. So that's amazing, and it kind of pairs the horror story with the good, because do you think that is one of the more horrific sides of it? Is people are just subsumed with their own thing,
Yeah.
subsumed with their bias that they have, because they spend their whole time looking at the tagline, looking at the
Yeah.
color, looking at the, oh man, does that make sense? And we should change it every 6 months. We should change it. We should change it. We have to change it. We have to. And you're like, slow down. No one knows who you are. We are going to help you. But I mean, seems like a lot of horror stories are around the anxiety of disrupting expectations, or their beautiful baby. Like you say, "Ooh,
Yeah.
your baby's ugly."
100%. Like, and I do. I think a lot of the time it's just businesses not getting in their own way or getting out of their own way, and listening to people, and again, like kind of falling in love with your own stuff and not seeing how to communicate why other people should love it too, and not just because it's yours.
Oh
I
yeah.
think. I mean, I don't have. some crazy horror stories. I think like maybe what some people can relate to. It all goes back to getting buy-in.
Yeah.
And so like convincing maybe your leadership team. I've worked on different teams before. Maybe they read like a marketing book, and they've really bought into some sort of concept that is not necessarily going to work or speak to the user,
Right.
or they want to like hack on like we were saying, some sort of like language that makes them sound really cool but has no resonance and isn't good
Right.
for optimization.
Right.
And then it's just like I'll usually push back. If it's a hill I'm willing to die on,
Metaphorical
um,
hills.
I'll do it your way and I'll also do it my way. And then you kind of got to just show why this is not going to work.
Yeah. And that you're talking about alignment, buy-in, and then having that conversation ahead of time, being like, I know y'all think you want traffic or conversions. Maybe you're looking for ranking. Maybe there's an engagement thing. I'm telling you, you think this is your pillar piece, but this over here,
Yeah.
it's so cool. And having somebody who's willing to push back from an informed place, but also willing to listen, that really is probably the secret. I mean, you have given us so many good things, thoughts about SGE, SEO. Boy, have we been in the acronym world, ROI, a CTR, all these things, but also creating human content with a touch. But if you had to consolidate all of this into one piece of advice, like a bumper sticker about content marketing, particularly in the age of AI, what do you think your bumper sticker would say?
Ooh, I mean, I would say I'm going to steal this quote actually, because this is from a marketer that I admire named Anne Hanley. If you
Oh,
haven't
she's the
heard of her,
best.
look her up. She's the best. I had the privilege of getting to share a stage with her. She was keynoting at a conference that I was speaking at. And and this was actually a couple of years ago. And one of the things she ended with was she alluded to that clothing metaphor, like wear the clothes, don't let the clothes wear you. She
Mm.
said, use the AI, don't let the AI use you.
Quote bomb.
And I think that's something that I've been really keeping in mind.
Wow. And a lot of these thoughts about in the age of AI applied to back when we were all obsessed about chatbots, applied to the time where we were all obsessed about
Exactly.
automation, So it's like, we've always been here. So use the tools, but don't let them use you. And be human and be more like Rachel, gosh darn it. How can people connect and learn more about you online, Rachel?
Yeah, so I'm active on LinkedIn. That's probably the best place to follow me if you want to hear what I have to say about digital marketing and SEO. My name is Rachel Hernandez. The Hoth, they can send a link over to you. And then the Hoth website, obviously, is a great resource for all digital marketing and SEO. I create all the content for that site. So if you like listening to this, it's a good place to hear more from me too. And then we are running some discounts as well. So if you are looking to purchase some SEO services, you can Google the Hoth SEO discount and you can see what specials we're running.
Cheese or chocolate?
Are you ready?
Yeah.
Cheese or chocolate?
Oh, chocolate.
Oh, okay. You're surprised. No one
I
is.
thought, I don't know. I thought there was more to the game.
No, there's more questions. That was it. You played. You win. You get a car. No. Oh, here's the next one. There's 6 of them, so I'll
Okay.
give you the ceiling. Taylor Swift or Lana Del Rey?
Oh, Lana Del Rey.
Yeah, that's old school.
Mm.
Old school. Anyway, old school-ish. Okay. Gummy bears or gummy worms?
Oh, gummy worms.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Is there a specific type?
Yeah, that's like, because aren't there sour ones too? I also
Yeah.
like when they're different colors. I like that they're multicolored, I think.
Yes. Oh my gosh. Enjoy that. Engage with that content. Here we go. Kindle or paperback?
Depends.
Oh,
Yeah. I mean, I paperback at home, Kindle everywhere else.
out and about. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I totally agree. Aisle or window?
Oh, aisle, 100%.
You're very sure about that. Explain.
I mean, I do have to fly out for work,
Right.
and I'm not a particularly anxious person, but there really is nothing worse than having to use the restroom and somebody is just passed out next to you and having to wake them up. Like,
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, but then the aisle person has a fealty to the sleepy people. If the snack wagon comes, do you wake them up? You know,
Yeah,
you're
I mean,
closer.
I would rather not have to make that decision. Like,
Yeah, I ain't doing that.
Yeah.
And they probably don't want to be bothered, you know? Okay, that's good.
Yeah. No,
Do-
aisle for sure.
You're speaking. Someone else is saying, like, yes, Rachel. Okay, and finally, flat or sparkling?
Sparkling.
We bubbling.
Yeah.
We
what about
popping bubs over here.
What Gets Measured is a NinjaCat podcast. Please rate and review the show wherever you find your podcasts. Share this episode on social and visit us on the web at ninjacat.io.